The light-haired man, alarmed and pointing upward, drew attention to the sky, while the dark-haired man, surprised and sweaty, questioned the appearance of the monstrous entity looming ominously above the city. As the monstrous entity cast its shadow over the city, a mysterious silhouette figure stood against the crimson sky, heralding the dawn of the mythical era. As vicious ghosts began their invasion of the world, terrifying creatures descended upon the chaos-stricken scene as a dark-haired boy ran frantically, chased by menacing beings, while a brown-haired boy scrambled in panic to escape their relentless pursuit. In the midst of this chaos, a group of diverse characters, each mastering their unique skills, emerged to showcase their weapons and magical abilities, signaling a powerful stand against the encroaching threats. The encouraging message in the white text box urged those facing the daunting challenges to elevate their ranks and amplify their strength, infusing a sense of determination amidst the chaos. Amidst the intense battle, the awakened ones fought against the ghostly monsters, carving out a space of survival for humanity as a mysterious hooded figure focused intently, aiming a bow at a leopard monster, while a determined sword wielder guarded against a wolf monster with unwavering alertness. In a triumphant display, a heroic and commanding armored warrior raised a glowing sword against the fiery backdrop, symbolizing the dawn of the mythical era and the rise of awakened professionals. As the anticipation reached its peak, an unknown speaker announced the commencement of the awakening ceremony at the school amidst the rustling of trees in the foreground. With anticipation in the air, the authoritative dark-haired man addressed the assembled students, informing them that today marked the day they would awaken to become professionals. As they gathered around the glowing magical platform, the bearded instructor, Luhu, passionately addressed the crowd, emphasizing that their future destinies were directly linked to the day's events. Among the hopeful crowd, the confident young man, Funhao, walked forward, reflecting on his years since transmigrating and expressing his wish for every student to awaken their desired profession on this pivotal day at Haising High School. As the tense atmosphere lingered, an unnamed speaker called for Fanga to step forward, and he confidently agreed to do so, embodying determination amidst the scrutinizing gazes of his peers. With determination etched on his face, the dark-haired young man confidently walked past the crowd, embodying the resolve to embrace his destiny amidst the watchful eyes. As the dark-haired young man continued his path, two girls nearby discussed with intrigue and excitement what profession might awaken to, guessing he would become a priest due to his handsome looks. While a mysterious man walked by in the background, the man in sunglasses critically remarked on the importance of professions over appearance, prompting the confident blonde-haired man to agree, while an observant background figure dismissed their statements as mere jealousy of Fanga's good looks. A focused and observant bearded man intensely examined Fang Zhao's profile, noting his excellent physical fitness and academic prowess, while a mysterious figure surrounded by glowing circles approached. The bearded man thoughtfully contemplated that it was no wonder so many were paying attention to Fang Hao. In the shadows of the room, the dark-haired young man, focused and determined, reached out and activated the glowing magical symbol, setting into motion the mysterious forces that lay within. With an unwavering gaze and eyes aglow, the dark-haired young man looked intently forward, his determination solidifying as he embraced the mysterious forces now coursing through him. As the Uruk spectators watched the powerful energy blast erupt around the lone figure, they marveled at the possibility that Fang Zhao's awakened profession might be as extraordinary as his reputation suggested. A mysterious and urgent figure clad in gloves reached out with surprise for the swirling green energy. As the room buzzed with the potent magic unleashed by Fang Zhao's awakening, the atmosphere grew even more ominous as a massive dark force crashed onto the large field, signaling the arrival of a new, daunting challenge. A bearded man, astonished by the swirling energy around him, pondered what incredible profession this young individual had awakened to trigger such a phenomenon in heaven and earth. As the bearded man's thoughts lingered on the incredible awakening, a horde of skeletal warriors and cloaked figures led by an armored skeleton advanced menacingly towards an unseen target, their glowing eyes fixed on the ominous tree with a gaping M. The dark-haired boy stood resolute, facing the formidable mystical figures who loomed over him with an air of intimidation as he prepared to confront the looming challenge with unwavering determination. Amidst the intimidating mystical figures, the haired boy confidently raised his sword, channeling the swirling energy around him with a triumphant stance. The dark-haired boy, now identified as a necromancer, found himself enveloped by dark energy, surprised yet resolute as he acknowledged his new profession and the swirling power that accompanied it. As the dark-haired figure stood amidst the swirling energy, he pondered whether this newfound path was truly his destined profession. The dark-haired boy, still processing the swirling energy and his newfound identity, looked puzzled as he turned to the group, who were laughing hysterically, seemingly amused by the situation. The blond boy, along with his companions, mocked the dark-haired necromancer's awakening, finding it amusing that such a rare profession was considered the weakest among combat roles. The dark-haired boy turned his attention away from the laughter to confront the shadowy figure. Considering the warning about necromancer's dependence on the undead realm's connection, the mystical and eerie skeleton with a sinister aura reached out toward the determined robed figure, questioning where living humans could possibly learn about the undead realm given the inherent opposition between life and death. With determination flickering in his eyes, the confident necromancer Feng Zhao examined the glowing display of his attributes, asserting internally that his uniqueness set him apart from others. As a powerful fist punched through the glowing barrier, the system congratulated the determined dark-haired boy for awakening the undead realm experience system, marking a triumphant moment in his journey as a necromancer. Holding the glowing green orb with anticipation, the dark-haired youth, feeling a sense of long-awaited destiny, acknowledged the arrival of his golden opportunity, albeit 18 years late. As the eerie green energy pulsed around him, the system informed Feng Zhao that he had unlocked a connection to the undead realm, automatically generating a clone to aid him on his path. The system explained that Feng Zhao, now able to explore the undead realm through his skeleton clone, could devour other undead creatures to level up and grow stronger, while warning him about the unknown risks of summoning the clone to the real world. The dark-haired figure, fully embracing the ominous potential of his necromancer abilities, conjured green energy with a determined focus, realizing that the system was indeed perfectly suited for his exploration of the undead realm. The mysterious and confident shadowy figure smirked, embodying the dark allure of the powers that Feng Zhao had just begun to grasp. With a dramatic flair, an unseen presence commanded the mystical forces to summon, echoing the intensity of Feng Zhao's newfound necromancer powers. As the eerie atmosphere enveloped the scene, the skeletal figure with glowing eyes acknowledged that the clone standing before him was indeed his own in the undead realm, while an unseen narrator explained that he could briefly possess it to experience this otherworldly domain. Swirling with eerie green energy, the skeleton clone demonstrated its formidable ability by devouring other undead creatures, enhancing its own power, and allowing the host to summon the slain entities to fight. In reality, the sinister skeletal figure surrounded by undead warriors contemplated that by killing enough adversaries, it could maintain an endless supply of summons. The dominant and ambitious armored figure standing against the foreboding red sky and jagged landscape confidently declared that the entire undead realm would serve as their hunting ground. The skull-faced figure, exuding a commanding presence, decided to postpone the exploration of the undead realm, instructing the system to bring the clone into the real world immediately. As a mystical green aura swirled around, an unseen entity communicated its understanding and began the process of summoning the skeleton clone. A glowing magical symbol radiated energy, casting a mystical ambience over the scene. As the summoning process unfolded, the skeletal figure, menacing and mysterious, stood before the glowing magical symbol, embodying the ominous energy that filled the air. The dark-haired man, determined and confident, summoned the skeleton clone directly into reality, marking it as his most powerful summon. The authoritative bearded man with an inquisitive air called out to Bai Shurao Chan, who stood composed alongside the mysterious skeleton figure, questioning internally how such a promising individual awakened to this unusual profession. The girl in yellow with unwavering optimism encouraged Fanga by expressing her belief that he could achieve legendary status as a necromancer and admired the coolness of the skeleton he had summoned. The blonde guy, visibly annoyed, complained loudly to his companions about how Fonzeo, despite his seemingly weak necromancer profession, still attracted admiration, questioning the fairness of it all, a determined character scheming to disrupt Feng Zhao's progress, resolved that shattering the skeleton would significantly impede Feng Zhao's advancement as a necromancer. The blonde man, calm and focused, confidently held his sharp, glowing arrow, casting a tense atmosphere as the skeleton figure observed menacingly. The white shirt figure, calm yet powerful, extended a hand that emitted a dazzling burst of energy, intensifying the charged atmosphere as both adversaries prepared for the impending confrontation. The skeleton warrior with its glowing blue eyes menacingly threatened the adversaries, declaring its hostile intent. The dark-haired young man, embodying confidence and composure, stood amidst swirling energy waves, his power radiating with unwavering assurance as he prepared for the challenges ahead. Amidst the charged atmosphere, a blonde-haired man exclaimed in surprise as he noticed something had suddenly disappeared. Seizing the opportunity, the skeletal figure, its eyes glowing ominously, aggressively dashed towards the blonde-haired man, who stood frozen in shock. With a fierce determination, the black-gloved figure delivered a powerful punch to the face of the blonde man, whose expression shifted from shock to pain. In the midst of the turmoil, an imposing and powerful monstrous figure fiercely attacked the blonde boy who was caught off guard while a dark-haired girl watched in surprise. Amidst the chaos, the bloodied man lay on the ground, his shock evident as he questioned how such an unimaginable event could be possible. Bruised and in pain, the blonde man desperately struggled to rise from the ground, his earlier shock now replaced by a grim determination to endure. The blonde man, clutching his face in anger, confronted Feng Zhao, demanding to know his intentions. As the blonde-haired man realized the skeleton's formidable capabilities, he reflected with frustration on how it had even detected a sneak attack from a blind spot. The dark figure stood enveloped in smoke, its menacing presence suggesting that while a skeleton mage's summon might be powerful, the mage's own physical strength remained limited. A determined figure raced swiftly across the grassy field, driven by urgency and intent. In a furious outburst, the fierce blonde man lunged aggressively at the calm, dark-haired figure, intent on unleashing his wrath. With focused determination, the dark-haired young man calmly blocked the incoming attack, showcasing his resolve amidst the tense confrontation. With a fierce determination, the dark-haired man delivered a powerful punch to the blonde man, sending him flying as the latter cried out in shock and pain. Charging forward with a glowing fist, the dark-haired character asserted with confidence that overestimating one's capabilities was a mistake. The dark-haired figure, driven by fierce determination, struck the blonde figure with a powerful energy-infused punch, leaving the latter stunned and struggling to comprehend the sudden assault. As the defeated blonde victim fell to the ground, bleeding and overwhelmed, the dark-haired individual stood confidently, his determined eyes meeting the apathetic gaze of the menacing. The blonde man lay on the ground, his body battered and covered in blood, embodying the desperation of the moment. The blue skeleton, embodying boredom, spoke dismissively to the dark-haired man, who remained indifferent as he confidently walked away. The dark-haired man with a commanding presence questioned the group about the noise, to which the short-haired woman explained that Lu Ringa's failed sneak attack on Feng Zhao led to his instant defeat, surprising everyone given the common belief about Necromancer's frailty. As the blonde-haired boy worriedly supported Feng Zhao, the group of young men helped guide him away, reflecting the urgency and concern of the moment. The blonde man, injured but defiant, shouted with anger and determination, vowing that they should just wait for what was to come. Under the calm, clear sky, a brightly lit building stood as a silent witness to the unfolding tension and impending challenges. In a secluded area, a dark-haired man, exuding determination, summoned the system with confidence as a ghostly figure ominously appeared behind him, asserting that no one should disturb him here. With a resolute expression, the dark-haired man held the glowing, swirling object as he prepared to embark on his journey into the undead realm, contemplating whether to begin this daunting experience. The dark-haired figure, embracing his role as a necromancer, channeled green magic with determination, pondering whether his journey into the undead realm would truly be as smooth as he hoped. With intense shadows casting across his resolute face, the dark-haired figure commanded the system to initiate the undead realm experience, aware of the perilous creatures and the risks entwined with rewards in this ominous venture. As the command was given, a glowing green frame manifested ominous demonic hands, suggesting that the system acknowledged his request and was preparing for the journey ahead. Standing resolute before the swirling energy of the mysterious portal, the dark-haired figure reflected on the 18 years he had waited for this system and resolved not to squander the opportunity to grow stronger. A translucent green screen shimmered into existence, presenting the dark-haired figure with a choice, warning that the undead realm experience carried unpredictable risks and asked if he wished to proceed. Determined and unwavering, the dark-haired man confirmed his readiness to begin the undead realm experience, fully aware of the unknown dangers it might entail. As the dark-haired figure stood in the glowing rune-covered circle, emitting a green aura, he felt a surge of surprise mingled with determination, fully embracing the ominous atmosphere surrounding his decision. As the blood-red sun rose over the desolate landscape, casting an eerie glow, the dark-haired figure's determination to embrace the unpredictable journey ahead only deepened. In the foreboding dawn, a crow perched menacingly on a tombstone amidst scattered skulls, echoing the dark-haired man's resolve as he ventured further into the ominous landscape of the undead realm. The desolate and fiery landscape, illuminated by a red moon in the sky, mirrored the foreboding journey that lay ahead in the ominous undead realm. Amidst the fiery landscape, a hooded figure crouched silently, embodying the ominous atmosphere that mirrored the dark-haired man's determined path through the undead realm. Amidst this unsettling backdrop, an imposing skeletal entity with glowing eyes stood menacingly, evoking the dark-haired man's thoughts about its resemblance to the skeleton he had summoned earlier, and pondering if he was truly experiencing the essence of the undead realm. The skeletal figure with glowing eyes activated its mysterious skill, leaving the dark-haired man to wonder if this innate ability referred to as skeletal armament would reveal deeper secrets about the essence of the undead realm. Intrigued, the skeletal figure assessed the ability just used by the clone, contemplating its connection to the mysterious powers within the undead realm. Determined to prepare for any threats, the cautious figure with the white skull-like mask decided to forge a weapon before facing the menacing shadowy creature in the fiery landscape. A ferocious wolf-like creature burst out from the shadows with terrifying speed. Its mouth was wide open, revealing rows of sharp fangs as it lunged directly toward the skeleton. Fang Zhou was caught completely off guard. He immediately leaped backward and narrowly avoided the wolf's claws. Looking at the beast, he realized that the undead realm was indeed filled with hidden dangers. Before he could fully recover, the two-headed wolf launched another fierce assault. Fanga tried to dodge, but his foot became tangled at the worst possible moment. Seeing the wolf rushing toward him, he remained calm and muttered that if that was the case, then he had another idea. In an instant, he swung his body and pulled the skeleton from the ground that had become tangled around his foot. He then kicked the skeleton's head, sending it flying straight toward the wolf's head. The beast simply shook its head and continued glaring at him with its crimson eyes. Fanga stared in disbelief as cold sweat ran down his skull. Seeing this, he realized that the kick had absolutely no effect at all. Bango struggled to keep up as the two-headed wolf continuously attacked from different directions. Every movement felt awkward, and he quickly realized that controlling a skeleton's body was much harder than he had imagined. The wolf kept circling and launching relentless assaults. He dodged as best as he could, but he knew things could not continue like this. While retreating, his eyes suddenly landed on a nearby pile of bones. A plan immediately formed in his mind. At that moment, blue energy surged around the scattered bones. The pile of bones instantly flew together and merged into a massive skeletal weapon. Without hesitation, Fanga swung it forward and shouted for the beast to die. The attack slammed directly into the wolf, sending a powerful impact through its body. However, the two-headed wolf was far tougher than expected. It snarled fiercely and pushed forward. Despite the hit, Fang Hao continued fighting at close range, circling the beast and striking from multiple directions. The battle grew increasingly intense as claws, fangs, and bone weapons collided again and again. Suddenly, back in the real world, Fang Hao realized something after being attacked by the wolf. The injuries suffered inside the undead realm were also transferred to reality. He concluded that this mysterious system was far more dangerous than he had originally imagined. However, he quickly shifted his attention back to the battle. Since one wolf head was already dead, there was no reason to let it go to waste. The skeleton raised a hand toward the corpse and issued a command. Dark energy surged forward and wrapped around the dead wolf head. At the same time, the skill skeletal armament activated once more. He grabbed the dead wolf head and transformed it into long skeletal chains. The chains shot through the air like living serpents and coiled around the wolf's body. The beast immediately struggled and roared furiously, trying to break free. Blood splattered as the chains tightened around it from every direction. The chains whipped through the battlefield repeatedly, slashing and piercing the wolf's body over and over. Each strike left fresh wounds across its fur and flesh. After defeating the two-headed wolf, Fang Zhou looked at its corpse and evaluated the battle. He admitted that skeletal armament was even more useful than he had expected. As a skill granted by the mysterious system, its versatility far exceeded his initial assumptions. Just as he was reflecting on the fight, a strange blue flame suddenly rose from the wolf's corpse. The eerie flame hovered above the dead beast, pulsing with an unusual energy. The moment he saw it, a powerful sensation surged through him, an overwhelming hunger. The feeling struck so suddenly that it caught him off guard. He could not understand why he desired the flame so badly. Then, as if responding to his instinct, a thought emerged deep within his consciousness. Eat it. Devour. Power. Evolve. The words echoed repeatedly in his mind. The hunger consumed his thoughts. Finally, he raised his hand and pulled the blue flame toward himself. Without hesitation, he opened his mouth and swallowed the mysterious soul-like fire in a single gulp. After swallowing the blue soul flame, Funjo felt a surge of energy flow through his body. A green system notification immediately appeared before him. The newly absorbed power was quickly converted into his attributes. His strength, constitution, agility, and spirit attributes all increased slightly. He concluded that this was likely one of the effects granted by skeletal armament. Just then, he received another notification telling him that his soul power had also increased slightly. Fang Hao stared at the new stat with curiosity and wondered what soul power could actually do. The system quickly provided an explanation. Soul power was converted from soul energy and had many different uses. It could be used to deduce and develop skills, increase one's potential, and even enhance equipment. In other words, the path forward was simple. As long as he continued hunting and gathering soul energy, he could keep growing stronger without stopping. After learning how the system worked, Funjo looked across the desolate, undead land and felt a surge of excitement. A realization flashed through his mind. He could grow infinitely. As long as he kept hunting and gathering soul energy, there seemed to be no limit to how strong he could become. While he was thinking, movement suddenly caught his attention. A ragged skeleton warrior approached from the distance. The system immediately displayed its information. It was a basic skeleton, the cannon fodder commonly summoned by necromancers. It was only an apprentice-level undead creature. Its body was fragile. It possessed no intelligence, and its greatest weakness was the soul fire burning inside its skull. Seeing that, Fang immediately became interested. He activated skeletal armament once more and successfully forged a piece of equipment, bone spear. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and struck. The enemy skeleton was blown away by the attack before it could even react. As the blue soul fire was absorbed, his agility and soul power increased slightly. Seeing this, Fanga's eyes glowed brighter. The increase confirmed his theory. Every undead creature he hunted could become nourishment for his growth. He continued his assault without slowing down. His spear pierced through another skeleton, shattering its bones. The moment its soul fire was devoured, the system rewarded him again. He started to feel his body becoming stronger with every kill. His path was becoming clearer and clearer. Every enemy he defeated was merely another stepping stone toward evolution. After countless battles, Feng Hao stood amid piles of broken bones. Blue soul fire flickered within his eyes as he examined his current status. His attributes had risen significantly. Strength 3, Agility 2, Constitution 2, Spirit 2, Soul Power 10. Yet instead of being satisfied, he shook his head. This level of power was still far from enough. He could become even stronger. As that thought echoed through his mind, the scene suddenly shifted to reality. At high school, Feng Zhou was standing quietly, still immersed in thoughts of becoming stronger and continuing his endless path of growth. Just as he was thinking, a familiar voice suddenly interrupted him. His classmate, Bia Shun, saw him standing in the empty hallway. She looked at him and asked what he was doing there. Startled, Fan Zhou snapped out of his thoughts and turned toward the source of the voice. His eyes widened slightly in surprise. Standing before him was Ba Xiaoan. After recognizing her, he asked in confusion why she was there. Bao Chen stared at him nervously. Her eyes soon fell on the blood stain on his hand, and she immediately became worried. She hesitated before speaking. Even if the profession he had awakened was not ideal, he should not hurt himself just to vent his frustration. Feng Zhao was stunned. He had no idea how she had arrived at such a conclusion. At that moment, he realized that Bisha Chun had completely misunderstood the situation. The injury on his hand had nothing to do with self-harm. Unable to explain the truth, Feng Zhao could only sigh inwardly. He thought that the next time he entered the undead realm, he would have to find a quieter place where no one could disturb him. Trying to calm her concerns, he casually told her that he was fine and that the wound was only a small scratch caused by carelessness. Bisha looked at him doubtfully and asked if that was really true. Feng Hao nodded and reassured her again. After a brief silence, he changed the subject. He reminded her that meditation class was about to begin and that they should hurry back to class. Bao Chen immediately agreed. The two of them then walked down the corridor together toward their classroom. As Feng Zhou and Ba Xiaochen walked through the corridor, Feng Zhou suddenly coughed. His body swayed slightly, causing Ba Xiaochen's expression to change immediately. She hurried to his side and grabbed his arm, telling him that he was obviously not fine. She insisted on taking him to the infirmary. Fenga quickly reassured her that he was all right. But inwardly, he finally understood what was happening. Entering the undead realm seemed to place a certain burden on his body. At that moment, a green notification screen appeared before him. It informed him that he had spent too much time in the undead realm today and warned him to pay attention to his physical condition. Seeing the message, Feng Zhou's eyes widened slightly. Then another discovery caught his attention. His own attributes had increased as well. His skills now included summon skeleton and a mysterious new ability called deducible skill. While Bai Xiaochan stood beside him, still worried and asking whether he was truly okay. Funha's attention remained fixed on the new skill. He stared at the words deducible skill and began to think. Could this ability allow him to do what only the most powerful awakened individuals could do? A bold idea suddenly appeared in his mind. Perhaps he could use this skill not only to learn abilities, but also to create entirely new ones. The possibility filled him with excitement. Feng Zhou clenched his fists, thinking that if his guess was correct, then his future potential might be far greater than he had ever imagined. He might one day create his own unique skills and walk a path unlike anyone else's. Sometime later, at Haiqing High School's teaching building, the students gathered inside a large lecture hall for their first meditation class. A woman with long red hair stepped onto the stage and introduced herself. Her name was Shunhong Yu, and she was the instructor responsible for teaching meditation. She was a silver lower rank fire mage. With a wave of her hand, glowing books appeared on the students' desks. Shenhong Yu explained that the book contained the basic meditation method corresponding to their professions. She instructed everyone to use meditation to display their professional abilities. She then explained that meditation could increase spirit power, which served as the foundation for using professional skills. However, she told the students not to be anxious if they failed at first. According to her, it was completely normal. She even boasted that despite being a genius, it had taken her half a month of training just to barely reach that stage. Fangzhou remained silent as he listened to her words. At that moment, a system notification suddenly appeared before his eyes, telling him that the system had detected a learnable skill, skeleton meditation method. It could be quickly deduced to the entry stage. Without hesitation, Fangzhou reached out and selected yes. The learning process immediately began. As soon as the learning process started, green streams of energy surged around Fangzhou. Strange symbols surrounded his body as the skeleton meditation method was rapidly absorbed into his mind. In an instant, Fangzhou's consciousness merged with a skeleton clone, and he successfully learned the skill skeleton meditation method. Fangzhou was surprised by how quickly he had mastered it. Just then another description appeared. Skeleton meditation method apprentice level entry stage. A basic meditation method for necromancers that slowly increases the spirit attribute by visualizing a skeleton. After reading the explanation, Fangzhou was not surprised at all. To ordinary people, visualizing a skeleton might be difficult, but for him, it was no different from looking at his own skeleton clone. Fangzhou quickly realized another advantage. As long as he did not enter the undead realm experience, the skeleton clone would continue meditating automatically. In other words, he could cultivate 24 hours a day without stopping. He immediately understood that this was one of the benefits granted by the system's innate necromancer holy body. Just then, another system notification appeared. Host spirit ability has increased. You may enter the undead realm experience again. Fangzhou narrowed his eyes. He knew that entering the undead realm consumed spirit power. Because of that, he could not afford to neglect the training of either his main body or his skeleton clone. Without hesitation, Fangzhou made his decision. He quickly entered the undead realm. After entering the undead realm once again, Fangzhou's skeleton clone immediately resumed hunting within the barren land of death. The clone charged across the battlefield and struck down undead creatures one after another with its bone weapon. Watching the gains accumulate, Fangzhou felt a surge of excitement. He realized that he could once again hunt to his heart's content and steadily grow stronger. Soon, a system notification appeared before him, telling him that a clone skill had reached proficiency. It can be used as skill material to deduce an unknown skill for the main body. Estimated cost, 10 points of soul power. Fangzhou's eyes narrowed in interest. He remembered the system mentioning skill deduction before. It seemed that the deduction process had to be performed inside the undead realm. Without wasting any time, he decided to test it. Immediately, green flames surged around the system interface. A mysterious symbol appeared as the system began analyzing the available materials. The deduction process continued for several moments while the progress bar steadily advanced. At last, the result appeared. Skill deduction successful. A brand new skill was born. Bone Javelin. The system displayed its description. Bone Javelin apprentice level proficient condenses a bone javelin and throws it at enemies. It deals both armor-piercing physical damage and death energy damage. Its quantity, power, and range depend on the user's spirit attribute and skill proficiency. Fangzhou looked at the newly acquired skill and immediately smiled. The bone javelin perfectly matched the weapon his skeleton clone had been using all along. After obtaining the bone javelin skill, Fangzhou discovered that it came with an entire derivative skill tree. At the top of the tree was bone javelin, and beneath it were several advanced branches, including bone shield, giant bone claw, and bone prison. Seeing this, Fangzhou was pleasantly surprised. He had not expected the skill to provide an entire evolution path. However, after examining it more closely, he realized that unlocking those advanced skills would require much more soul power. For now, all he could do was continue accumulating soul power through hunting. While thinking about his next steps, Fangzhou suddenly noticed something unusual. Not far away, several undead skeletons were wandering across the wasteland. The moment they sensed his presence, they appeared terrified and tried to flee. Fangzhou's eyes lit up. A smile spread across his skeletal face. Since suitable targets had appeared on their own, he could use them to test his newly acquired skill. Without hesitation, Fangzhou activated Bone Javelin. A gigantic bone spear condensed in the air, wrapped in blue death energy. The javelin shot forward like a bolt of lightning and slammed into the ground among the fleeing skeletons. The impact was devastating. The earth cracked apart as the undead creatures were instantly shattered into piles of broken bones. After witnessing the result, Fanga nodded in satisfaction. The power of Bone Javelin far exceeded ordinary apprentice-level skills such as Death Missile and Ray of Enfeeblement. Its destructive force was clearly on a completely different level. After testing Bone Javelin, Fang Hao noticed something unexpected. The rewards from defeating the weak skeletons had decreased significantly. When he checked his status, he realized that his attributes were not rising like before. Fang Hao quickly understood what was happening. The system was clearly preventing him from endlessly farming weak undead for easy growth. If he wanted larger rewards, he would have to venture deeper into the more dangerous regions of the undead realm. However, before doing that, there was still something important he needed to obtain. Bone Essence. Until he acquired enough Bone Essence, he would continue hunting and devouring these low-level undead to strengthen himself. Back in the real world, Fang Zhou sat quietly in the classroom while his consciousness remained focused on the undead realm. As he watched his strength steadily increase, a grin slowly appeared on his face. A faint chuckle escaped him. The sound immediately caught Shun Hong's attention. Curious, Teacher Shun Hongyu walked over and gently tapped his shoulder, calling out to him. Fang. Zhou snapped back to reality. Shun Hongyu frowned slightly and asked why everyone else was concentrating on meditation while he was sitting there giggling to himself. Fang Zhao awkwardly opened his mouth, unsure how to explain. Before he could answer, another student suddenly spoke up. The student confidently declared that he knew the reason. In his opinion, Fang Hao had simply failed to enter a meditative state. Another student questioned that conclusion, pointing out that rare professions were supposed to have superior meditation effects. A classmate immediately corrected him, explaining that it depended on the specific rare profession. He then added that very few people had ever awakened as necromancers. Because of that, the skeleton meditation method available to necromancers was rumored to be incomplete. As a result, it would not be surprising if Fanga found it difficult or even impossible to enter a meditative state. Hearing everyone discuss him as if he had failed, Fang Hao could only remain silent. Teacher Shin looked at Feng Zhao with a serious expression and told him that she understood meditation was difficult for his profession. However, she warned him not to give up on himself so easily. She then pointed out that because he was the only student not seriously trying, the entire class was having its time wasted. To make her point, she gestured toward Linnea. She praised him for his hard work, saying that in just a single class, he had already meditated enough to materialize the handle of a knife. Leah smiled modestly and thanked Teacher Shun for the compliment. Even so, he claimed that he had only comprehended about 1/3 of the meditation method so far. According to him, his cultivation speed was merely at the level of an average genius. Then he turned toward Fanga with a smug look and said that Fan Hao should now understand the gap between a necromancer and other professions. Hearing that, Fan Hao let out a faint chuckle. He calmly replied that such a speed was indeed very average. The entire classroom fell silent. Lai Renjia's eyes widened in disbelief. He could hardly believe what he had just heard. Recovering from the shock, he immediately pointed at Feng Zhao and angrily declared that Feng Zhao could not even enter a meditative state. He told him to look at his own situation before bragging. At that moment, Feng Hao released a terrifying aura that made the atmosphere turn cold and oppressive. Lai Renjia's expression instantly changed. The arrogance on his face disappeared as fear took its place. Instinctively, he stepped back. The overwhelming presence looming behind Fongo made it clear that he was not someone to be taken lightly. Teacher Shin quickly called out to Leah, telling him to focus his mind and calm down. Then she turned toward Fang Zhou with a displeased expression and asked what he thought he was doing. She reminded him that this was a meditation class meant for learning meditation, not a place for aggressive brawling. Any fighting could wait until combat class. Fang Zhou calmly rested a hand on the desk and explained that he had only wanted Li Renjia to step aside. A faint smile appeared on his face as he continued speaking. He said he simply wanted to show Teacher Shun his meditation progress. The classroom immediately became restless. A silver-haired girl stared at him in surprise and wondered if Feng Hao had actually succeeded in meditation. Even if he had, she thought he should have only completed around 1/10 of the entry stage at most. Meanwhile, many students looked toward Fanga with curiosity and doubt. Ignoring everyone's reactions, Fanho slowly activated the technique skeleton meditation method. In the next instant, Dark energy erupted from his body. Black streams of power surged upward like countless shadowy tendrils, filling the classroom with a chilling aura. Powerful waves of energy spread in every direction, causing the air itself to tremble. The students could only stare in shock as the dark currents continued to rise around Feng Zhao. Teacher Shin also stared at Feng Zhou in disbelief. She could hardly understand how it was possible. In the span of a single class, Feng Zhou had actually reached the entry stage of the skeleton meditation method. Feng Zhou stood calmly beneath the giant skeleton and casually thought that at this speed compared to an average genius, he should be at least 100 million times better. At that moment, Instructor Lu Hu suddenly stepped forward. After observing Feng Zhao's aura, he admitted that Feng Zhou's progress with the meditation method was quite impressive. Then, to everyone's surprise, he announced that there would be a test the next day. The announcement immediately caused an uproar throughout the classroom. Several students jumped to their feet in shock. Some wondered if they were already going to have combat class, while others complained that they had not even reached the entry stage of their own meditation methods yet. As the room buzzed with complaints, Lyrenian narrowed his eyes and looked toward Feng Zhou. A cold smile appeared on his face. He reminded Feng Zhou that combat class was completely different from meditation. In the field he excelled at, he intended to show everyone the difference between them. Inwardly mocking Feng Hao as nothing more than a weak chicken mage, Lin Jia looked forward to seeing how long Fenga could keep up his confident act once the real fighting began. Mastering meditation has boosted Feng Zhao's spirit power, significantly extending the time he can operate within the undead realm. His connection to the skeleton clone is now more stable, allowing him to navigate the wasteland with greater efficiency and focus. Refusing to slack off, he pushes himself to the limit, knowing every moment in this realm is a precious opportunity for growth. With his energy slowly depleting, he dives back into combat, determined to harvest more souls and solidify his strength for the upcoming test. Fongo goes on a violent rampage, tearing through endless ranks of low-level skeletons in the undead realm wasteland. Driven by a desperate hunger for power, he demands even more enemies to fuel his rapid, lethal evolution. His combat prowess grows with every strike, allowing him to decimate the spectral forces at an ever-increasing pace. Briefly catching his breath, he prepares to dive even deeper into the abyss to maximize his gains before his time runs out. With his spirit power nearly exhausted, Feng Zhao prepares to conclude his intense hunting session. His hard work is rewarded as the system announces a professional level increase and a massive strengthening of his skeleton clone. Without a moment's hesitation, he confirms the prompt to claim his hard-earned power. A surge of spectral energy engulfs the clone, finalizing its transformation into a far more powerful and imposing warrior. After concluding his intense training session, the scene shifts from the eerie undead realm back to the familiar grounds of the Haiying High School sports field. Despite his rapid growth, Feng Zhao is left reeling from severe mental exhaustion, struggling with the painful side effects of his depleted spirit power. Noticing his worn-out state, Bai Shirao Chan expresses genuine worry about his health, though he quickly dismisses her fears with a casual lie about overpracticing. Realizing the danger of his double life, Feng Zhao resolves to keep his connection to the system a secret, vowing to only enter the spectral realm when he is completely alone. Despite his earlier success, the bullies continue to ridicule Feng Zhao, dismissing the Necromancer class as inherently weak and useless. Bai Shirao Chan confronts the group, demanding to know why they persist in targeting Feng Zhao when he has done nothing to provoke them. Feng Ha challenges his rival, Lu Rinja, who dismisses his previous defeat and claims to have surpassed his former self. Within a week, Lu Rinja brandishes a newly mastered professional skill, arrogantly boasting that he now possesses the power to finish Feng Zhao in one strike. Instructor Lu arrives just in time to break up the heated confrontation, putting a sudden stop to the brewing fight. He harshly scolds the students, reminding them that the skills they learn are meant for fighting ghosts, not for settling petty internal grudges. Turning to Feng Zhao, the instructor acknowledges his impressive meditation results, but emphasizes that he must work just as hard in the actual combat class. As the teacher walks away, Fongo realizes that Lu's strict attitude is actually a way of intentionally looking out for his future success. Instructor Lu calls the class to order on the sports field, signaling the beginning of the highly anticipated combat assessment. Aides wheel out heavy equipment as students watch with curiosity and a touch of nervousness about the trial ahead. The instructor unveils an apprentice-level test golem, a specialized training robot designed to push the students to their limits. He explains that this machine will be used to accurately measure both their offensive output and defensive capabilities in a controlled combat scenario. Instructor Lu sets the baseline, explaining that the golem mimics a low-level abyss demon with an attack and defense rating of 100. The first student tests their magical prowess with a fireball, hoping to reach the standard required for real combat. Despite the effort, the student scores a mere 48, highlighting the massive gap between classroom practice and actual demonic power. A physical attacker fares even worse, scoring a 41 with their strike and proving that most of the class is still far from ready. An archer's specialized strike only reaches a score of 50, emphasizing the brutal difficulty of meeting the instructor's expectations. As the common classes finish with disappointing results, Instructor Lu summons the special professions to finally take the stage. Common students lament their inability to reach the passing score of 60, wondering if the elite hidden classes can actually earn the promised rewards. Funhao prepares his turn, contemplating whether the golem will calculate the combined strength of both himself and his summoned skeleton. Lu Rinxiao mocks Feng Zhao's hesitant expression, claiming the Necromancer's attack power is undoubtedly the lowest in the class. Eager to demonstrate the gap in their abilities, the bully charges forward and unleashes his Phantom Dagger skill against the golem. The machine registers a score of 80, an impressive result that highlights the raw power of his Phantom Assassin hidden profession. Lu Rinja basks in his success and continues to taunt Feng Zhao, though his peers quickly remind him that he isn't the only one with a rare class. Instructor Lu calls forward Yi Fan, the next highly touted student, to face the combat assessment. Classmates whisper in envy, noting his rare demon hunter profession and the special attention he receives from the school's top brass. Yin remains composed as he manifests a large green glowing blade, displaying the lethal energy of his hidden class. With his weapon fully materialized, he prepares to launch a devastating blow and showcase the power of a top-tier awakened. Yin begins his test with a vengeance strike, but a disappointing score of 65 leaves the onlookers unimpressed. Refusing to settle for a mediocre result, he reveals his true focus, signaling that his attack sequence is far from over. He unleashes a rapid vengeance combo, demonstrating the unique multi-hit scaling inherent to the demon hunter profession. The final score skyrockets to a staggering 169, crushing previous records and solidifying his status as a top-tier talent. Yin concludes his evaluation, setting a new bar for the class with a cumulative attack score of 100. Watching closely, Feng Hao realizes the golem tolls total damage over multiple hits rather than measuring a single strike. Applying this logic to his own summons, he concludes that the machine's durability threshold is well within his reach. After achieving a score of 100, Yin stood confidently on the testing field, convinced that no one in the class could surpass him. Nearby Shirao Chan complained that Yan had only reached that score by stacking multiple attacks together. She regretted not attacking a few more times herself. Lu Rinja immediately mocked her, pointing out that an assassin-type profession would never gain a combo skill like that. Before their argument could continue, Lu called by Shirao Chan forward for her test. She nervously stepped onto the field and reminded herself that as the holder of a hidden profession, she could not afford to embarrass herself. Gathering wind energy around her body, she rushed forward and struck the test golem. The machine registered a score of 31. Lu, who announced her attack capability as 31, by Shirao Chan, could only sigh, concluding that support professions simply lacked defensive power. Lu Rinja burst into laughter and ridiculed the result. He claimed that if he had awakened as an assassin, his score would easily have exceeded 80. The testing continued. Next, Gujicho stepped forward and used Chain Wind Energy Missile, earning an attack score of 72. After him, Zhou Yuan activated Shield Armor Charge and achieved a score of 69. Chunyong then used Giant Hammer Smash and registered a score of 84. As the results accumulated, students discussed the impressive performances. Even so, no one had managed to surpass Yain's score of 100 or destroy the golem. Someone then pointed out that one hidden profession had not yet taken the test. That person was Feng Zhao, the Necromancer. The moment his name came up, Wan Xiao laughed and dismissed the idea that Feng Zhao could accomplish anything. He doubted Feng Zhao would even reach 10 attack points and questioned whether his skeletons could stand properly at all. Feng Zhao calmly asked whether Lu Rina was really so certain that he could not win the 20 contribution point. Confident as ever, Lu Rina declared that if Fanga managed to destroy the golem, he would eat it on the spot. Feng Zhao simply smiled and reminded him to remember those words. He then walked to the center of the field and asked everyone to step back. Lu Rinja assumed Fongo was worried about being laughed at for a low score, but Fongo explained that the skill he was about to use required a lot of space. Dark clouds gathered overhead as green magical chains spread around him. Moments later, 10 skeletons rose from the ground. The sight stunned everyone present. Students immediately questioned how an apprentice-level necromancer could summon 10 skeletons when newly awakened necromancers were usually limited to only 2. Some even wondered whether Feng Zhao had already advanced to the Black Iron rank. Even Instructor Lu, who found it hard to believe. He recalled that Sun Yan, widely regarded as the most talented necromancer in history, had only been able to summon 5 skeletons when she first awakened. The comparison made him question whether Feng Zhao's talent might be even greater. Watching the reaction, Feng Zhao quietly noted that he had already held back. Otherwise, the attention he attracted would have been even more overwhelming. He then gave a single command for the skeletons to attack. The undead army immediately charged forward. Their speed shocked Lu Rina, and they quickly surrounded the test golem with a barrage of attack. The score on the display rapidly climbed from 30 to 45 and then to 60 before finally stopping at 65. Seeing the result, Lu Rinja relaxed and laughed. He argued that the attack value was nothing special. Other students agreed that while 65 was respectable for a normal warrior, it seemed underwhelming for a summoner controlling so many skeletons. Lu Rinja mocked the result further, pointing out that each skeleton had contributed less than 10 points on average. Feng Zhao calmly told him not to rush to conclusions because the test had only just begun. When Lu Nia questioned him again, Feng Zhao snapped his fingers. Green energy burst outward. Since 10 skeletons were not enough, he decided to summon 20. A second wave of skeletons emerged from the ground, creating an army of 20 undead warriors. The entire field erupted in shock. By Shirao Chan watched excitedly and cheered for Feng Hao, saying she had known he could do it. The skeleton horde resumed its assault. The score quickly climbed to 81, then 97, and soon surpassed 108. Under the relentless attacks, one of the golem's arms was completely destroyed. A massive explosion followed. When the smoke finally began to clear, the golem's head flew into the air while its damaged display crashed to the ground. The screen showed a final score of 999. The students were stunned before breaking into loud disbelief. Fongo had pushed the golem beyond its limits and completely destroyed it. Meanwhile, Lu Rinja stared at the wreckage in horror. Fongo calmly walked over to the shattered machine and placed a hand on its severed head. He reminded Lu Rinja of his promise and informed him that he could start eating the golem now. Lu Rinja could barely respond. Feng Zhao then said that he did not actually have to eat it if he did not want to. However, he warned Lu Rinja to stay out of his sight from now on. Terrified, Lu Rinja immediately ran away while swearing that he would settle the score another time. Afterward, Bao Chan rushed over and excitedly asked Feng Zhao how he had become so strong. She even begged him to teach her. Feng Zhao awkwardly replied that he had only been doing normal meditation training. Instructor Lu, who soon approached as well. He praised Feng Zhao's performance and promised to fight for a place for him on the school's specially cultivated seed list. The scene then shifted to the principal's office. The white-haired principal sat behind his desk reviewing a report on the latest awakening result. Out of 10,000 new students, 13 had successfully awakened, rate of roughly 91%. He reviewed a list of 85 rare professionals selected for the seed program, including Xiao Yuan by Shirao Chan, Guji Cho, and Yan. The principal considered adding all 85 directly to the school's list of 100 seed candidate. However, when he reached Feng Zhao's profile, he paused. After looking over the information on the Necromancer, the principal coldly concluded that the profession had no future and decided that Fongo should be excluded from the seed. In the principal's office, the principal was seated at his desk when he instructed someone to come in. Instructor Lu entered quickly with several papers in hand. The principal asked why he was not in combat class and how he had time to report something. Instructor Lu responded that he had an urgent matter to report. The principal looked over the document and asked why he was in such a hurry. He then immediately located the relevant file. Instructor Lu presented Feng Zhao's file and identified Feng Zhao as a necromancer. He strongly recommended that Feng Zhao be added to the school's seed list. The principal acknowledged that the necromancer profession had strong potential, but stated that in practice, it was extremely difficult to fully develop. Instructor Lu countered by pointing out that Major Swan was also a necromancer and had combat power comparable to other mages. The principal responded that Suyin only appeared successful because she had been fully nurtured by him, her former mentor, and questioned what qualifications Feng Zhao could possibly have. He then reminded Instructor Lu that Feng Ha's parents had once been comrades in arms and were recognized as Federation heroes, but stressed that the seed list was extremely important and came with both resources and responsibility. Instructor Lu insisted on his recommendation and submitted reports from Feng's meditation and combat classes. The principal reacted with surprise after reading them, noting that Feng Zhao had learned the skeleton meditation method in his very first meditation class and could summon over 20 skeletons in actual combat. Instructor Lu argued that Feng Zhao's talent could allow him to make history for necromancers. The principal stopped the discussion and decided to evaluate Feng Zhao's results after the simulated battlefield was opened. As he examined the file more closely, the principal expressed interest in seeing what Feng Zhao was capable of. Outside, Feng Zhao walked together with Biao Chan. Biao Chan asked how he had managed to achieve such results, noting that summoning so many skeletons in the first combat class was unusual. Feng Hao replied that it was simply a matter of summoning a few more and that it was not a big deal. Bai Xiaoan accused him of being overly humble to the point of arrogance, but Fongo repeated that he did not think it was impressive. Internally, he reflected that he could not reveal that his current strength was only a fraction of what he could actually do. He smirked quietly as Ian called out to him and asked him to wait. Ian confidently declared that he had never been weaker than anyone and that among everyone in Class 1, only Feng Zhao was worthy of being his opponent. Bai Shirao-chan and Feng Zhao both fell silent at the statement. Feng Zhao declined the challenge and started walking away, saying he had no interest in dealing with him. Bai Shirao-chan found his behavior rather strange. Effin stopped him and clarified that it was not a simple challenge, but a request for him to become a sparring partner. Ian recalled that after awakening the rare demon hunter profession, he had joined a demon hunter research group where a sparring partner of equal strength was required for further study. Feng Zhao questioned why he should participate in Yin's research. Effin offered 10 contribution points, explaining that it covered 2 weeks of sparring services along with room and board. Fongo immediately agreed and shook hands to confirm the deal. Yin was satisfied, remarking that Feng Zhao truly lived up to being the rival he had chosen, then expressed surprise that he had agreed so quickly. Feng Zhao then told him to follow without delay. As they walked by, Shirao Chan asked Feng Zhao if he had really accepted such a strange person so easily. Feng Zhao replied that 10 contribution points was quite a significant amount. Feng Zhao privately reflected that those at a certain place likely needed resources like these. As Biao Chan and Feng Zhao walked together, Bao Chan wondered aloud if Yin was a second-generation rich kid, since he seemed unusually generous. Feng Zhao dismissed the idea and explained that Yayan was not wealthy at all and that the contribution points had been advanced by the Research Association. Bai Shirao Chan was surprised and asked if the Research Association was really that generous. Feng Zhao clarified that it was only in advance and that Yin would eventually have to repay it. He further commented that given Yayan's extravagant spending habits, he would likely end up in debt for about 20 years after graduation. Bai Shirao-chan reacted with surprise at this explanation. At that moment, Yin called for them to hurry and led them into a building. Inside, Yayan introduced the laboratory and asked for their opinion. Fang Zhao noted that it was a highly well-equipped facility and remarked that the treatment for rare professionals was indeed extraordinary. A man then introduced himself as Chunqing Shan, a silver-level Gale Ranger and the person in charge of the Demon Hunter Research Association. Fang Zhao and Bai Shirao Chan greeted him, and Chunqing Shan acknowledged them. Fang Zhao observed that although Chunqing Shan worked in logistics research, he still carried the aura of someone who had experienced frontline battles. As they walked through the lab, Chunqing Shan explained that recently in the Abyss Mystic Realm, a senior demon hunter had achieved a legendary crown and successfully slain an Abyss Lord, demonstrating immense combat power. He then stated that after Yayan awakened his demon hunter profession, the Hang Military Academy placed great importance on him and established the research group to fully develop his potential. Chunqing Shan also mentioned that he had reviewed Fang Zhao's files, and if Fanga was interested, they could even establish a separate research association for him. Fang Zhao declined the offer. Internally, he thought he did not want to end up spending 20 years repaying debt. After graduation, Chunqing Shan accepted his refusal and decided to proceed directly with the actual combat research. As Funha and Yin headed downstairs toward the training area, Chunqing Shan explained that strict safety measures had already been put in place. He assured them that they could focus entirely on the battle without worrying about their lives being in danger. Fang Zhao considered Yanni's strengths, noting his speed and burst damage and how they would likely counter his skeleton summoning abilities. System displays his skill tree as Fang Zhao decided it was time to use skill deduction to further increase his combat power. He began upgrading his abilities. Summon Skeleton advanced, Bone Javelin reached level 2, and Bone Shield reached level 1. While Yin removed his jacket in preparation for the match, Fang Zhao suddenly remembered that he had recently mastered the Bladed Bow's weapon mastery skill. Ei then stepped forward with his bow and confidently claimed that even if Fanga summoned 20 skeletons, he still would not be able to defeat him. Fango merely smiled as he selected and equipped the apprentice robe, suggesting that things might turn out differently. As green energy surrounded him, he reflected that after investing points into his skills and preparing his equipment, the battle would no longer be so predictable. The system displayed his updated skill information, showing that Summon Skeleton had been grasped, Bone Javelin had reached the mastered level, and Bone Shield had become proficient. System notifications appeared before him. The Apprentice Staff, a gray inferior grade weapon produced through mass production, slightly increased the effectiveness of spells. The Apprentice Robe, also a gray inferior grade item, slightly reduced the damage he would receive. Yifan and our hero stood face to face as both of them activated their skills at the same time, smiling confidently. Yifan looked at him and said, "As expected of my rival, this confidence is indeed impressive. However, the enhancements the research group gave me are far beyond what you can imagine." The moment he finished speaking, a green aura burst out around his body, and in the very next second, he disappeared from his spot and closed the distance, appearing right in front of our hero to launch an attack. While the battle had only just begun, Professor Chun and the other researchers quietly started discussing the outcome. One of them asked, "Who do you guess will win?" Another researcher answered without any hesitation, "Definitely Yifan. You've interacted with him so many times this week. His combat instincts are the most terrifying I've ever seen." While they were still talking, Instructor Lu suddenly arrived from behind and calmly said, "Making a conclusion so early, you researchers are too hasty." Seeing him there, Professor Chin looked genuinely surprised before smiling. "Old Lu, why are you here?" Folding his arms across his chest, Instructor Lu replied while looking toward the battlefield, "Two outstanding students from my class are having a match. As their teacher, of course I have to observe." Hearing that, Professor Chin adjusted his glasses with a smile and asked, "What? Teacher Lu actually thinks Fang Zhu can defeat Yifan?" Without the slightest hesitation, Instructor Lu answered, "Exactly." As he spoke, he handed Professor Chen Fang Zhu's detailed report. Professor Chen immediately started reading through it before saying, "Fang Zhu can indeed summon many skeletons, but that doesn't change the fact that he's a mage with a fragile body. Moreover, Yifan comprehended an extremely powerful displacement skill yesterday." Became slightly surprised. At that very moment, Yifan's attack finally reached our hero. Fang Yu barely managed to dodge it, retreating several steps while thinking that Yifan's close combat strength was incredibly high. If he wanted to win, he had to keep as much distance between them as possible. However, before our hero could create enough space, Yifan immediately activated his demon hunting arrow skill and launched another attack while shouting, "Don't think you are safe just by keeping your distance." Seeing the attack racing toward him, our hero instantly entered a fighting stance and began summoning skeleton after skeleton. Unfortunately, none of the skeletons could withstand Yifan's attacks. Every single one was destroyed almost the instant it appeared. As he continued attacking, watching his summons disappear one after another, our hero immediately realized the problem. His summoning rhythm had been interrupted. Just then, another devastating attack barely missed him. After narrowly dodging it, he couldn't help but think how close that had been. Without wasting another second, Feng Yu started summoning skeletons again. But every time a skeleton appeared, it was instantly destroyed by Yifan's attacks before it could even survive for a full second. Watching such an intense battle unfold before them, Professor Chen couldn't help but praise them. The younger generation is truly formidable. With Feng Yu's performance today, even if he loses to Yifan, I will approve his selection for the seed list. Hearing that, Instructor Lu smiled faintly and said, "Old Chun, don't celebrate too early." Even as he spoke, he couldn't help but think that Feng Yu was far too calm and experienced. He simply refused to believe that the boy didn't have any hidden trump cards left. Meanwhile, the battle continued without stopping. Our hero kept summoning skeletons one after another, while Yifan effortlessly destroyed them all with a single strike each time. Watching his entire army disappear so easily, sweat gradually became visible across Feng Yu's face. After carefully observing the situation, he finally admitted to himself that he couldn't hold back any longer. The next moment, he raised both of his hands high into the air and unleashed his full power, summoning skeletons at an unbelievable speed. Seeing so many skeletons appearing continuously, Professor Chun and every researcher present widened their eyes in complete disbelief. 30 skeletons? Professor Chen shouted in shock. The researcher standing beside him immediately added, "This kid only awakened a few days ago. How did he upgrade his skill this much?" Even Yifan couldn't hide his surprise after witnessing Feng Yu's ability. Instead of panicking, he smiled excitedly and said, "Not bad. Only with this ability are you worthy of being my rival." Hearing those words, our hero quietly clenched his fists. Even though Yifan was surrounded by dozens of skeletons, he remained unbelievably calm. That alone convinced Feng Yu that Yifan was definitely hiding another backup plan. Before he could think any further, Yifan once again began cutting down the skeletons one after another. But this time, every skeleton that fell was instantly replaced by another one summoned by Feng Yu. Watching this endless cycle continue, Yifan silently judged that the distance between them was finally enough. Without slowing down, he continued destroying skeleton after skeleton. Seeing Yifan getting closer and closer to victory, Professor Chen couldn't contain his excitement anymore. It's over. A mage fighting in close quarters could never withstand Yifan's attacks. Instructor Lu, however, looked far more surprised than anyone else. At that exact moment, as Yifan stepped within striking distance of Feng Yu, our hero suddenly smiled. "You took the bait." The instant those words left his mouth, Yifan rushed in for the finishing blow. But just as his attack was about to land, Feng Yu activated his bone shield skill. The attack was completely blocked, and the force released by the shield was so overwhelming that it blasted Yifan backward, sending him flying through the air. While being thrown away, Yifan looked completely stunned and shouted, "What skill is this?" Seeing that ability, even Instructor Lu couldn't hide his shock anymore. "This is the Necromancer's new skill." The moment he said that, Professor Chun was equally stunned and exclaimed, "He actually comprehended a new skill on his own? That's impossible." Meanwhile, Feng Yu calmly looked at Yifan and said, "Sorry, you're stronger than I imagined, so I had to use some tactics." Hearing those words, Yifan was left speechless. Professor Chen also stared at the battlefield in complete disbelief before he could even finish speaking. Before Professor Chen could continue, Instructor Lu immediately interrupted him and said with a helpless smile, "This kid, his tactics are really dirty." Professor Chen finally understood what had happened and exclaimed. He actually used an optical camouflage cloth to disguise himself among the skeletons. Surrounded by countless identical skeletons, Yi Fan couldn't identify Feng Zhu's real body, no matter how hard he looked. Grinding his teeth in frustration, he shouted, "Damn it! I can't find where Feng Zhu's real body is at all. Feng Zhu, come out." After shouting those words, he resumed attacking the skeletons one after another. However, as he fought, he quickly realized that if this continued, he would eventually be worn down to death. I can only use that move. The instant he made that decision, Yi Fan activated another skill. A terrifying burst of power erupted around him, causing every skeleton nearby to collapse one after another without him even touching them. Witnessing that scene, Instructor Lu's eyes widened in disbelief. How is this possible? He actually learned that skill at this level. Professor Chen immediately nodded and explained, "That's right. Although its cooldown time is very long, it possesses extremely high burst damage and incredible disengagement capabilities." At the same time, Feng Zhu quietly disappeared among the collapsing skeletons. The instant Yi Fan noticed the movement, his eyes lit up. That's the one. Without giving Feng Zhu another chance to escape, Yi Fan immediately activated his skill again and charged forward at full speed while shouting, "Feng Zhu, take my attack." Shouting at the top of his lungs, Yin charged straight toward our hero at incredible speed. Countless skeletons stood between them, and believing that one of them had to be Feng Zhu in disguise, Effin unleashed a devastating strike without hesitation. The force of the attack was so overwhelming that every skeleton in the surrounding area was instantly obliterated, and a massive explosion echoed throughout the battlefield. As the dust slowly began to settle, Effin stood there calmly with complete confidence and declared, "Your strength is great, but I, Effin, also have my pride and cannot lose." Believing the battle was already over, he turned around and shouted, "Hurry and call the medical staff over. I don't want to cause any casualties." However, the moment he looked at Professor Chen, Instructor Lu, and Ba Zhen, he immediately noticed that something was wrong. None of them looked like people who had just witnessed a victory. Their strange expressions left him completely confused. In the next instant, a terrifying thought crossed his mind. These weren't the expressions someone would give to the winner. Effin immediately looked down at the skeleton lying on the ground before him, and his eyes widened in disbelief. This isn't Feng Zhu. At that very moment, everything suddenly clicked together in his mind. Reverse disguise plus double disguise. It wasn't that he disguised himself as a skeleton. He made the skeleton disguise itself as him while he disguised himself as another skeleton. Before Ian could fully process what had happened, the skeleton lying on the ground suddenly grabbed hold of his leg. The unexpected move shocked him completely. At that exact moment, the real Feng Zhu calmly stepped out from the crowd of skeletons behind him in his true form. Pointing his weapon directly at Ian, he smiled and said, "Yeah, thank you for letting me win." The instant Yan heard Feng Zhu's voice behind him, he quickly turned around. His expression completely changed as he stared at our hero in disbelief. Realizing there was no way to turn the situation around anymore, he slowly let go of his weapon and admitted, "I admit defeat. Feng Zhu wins." Even while accepting his loss, Effin couldn't help but think that the skill he had used just now had consumed far too much of his strength. He had exhausted everything and no longer had the energy to continue fighting. His body began to lose balance, and he was just about to collapse onto the ground when one of Feng Zhu's skeletons quickly caught him before he could fall. Seeing that unexpected kindness from the very person who had defeated him, Yin smiled and quietly thanked him. Hearing that, Feng Zhu smiled back and jokingly replied, "Don't mind it. Just consider this my sympathy for the loser." While our hero was saying that, his skeletons began carrying Yin away from the battlefield. But the moment Yin heard those words, he immediately shouted back while still lying down, "Bastard! Failure is merely the fuel for me to become stronger. Just you wait. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river." Hearing Yin's passionate declaration, Feng Zhu laughed helplessly and said, "I was just joking. No need to get so excited, right?" Just then, Professor Chen walked over and said, "Although I am reluctant to admit it, student Feng Zhu, your combat power far exceeds my expectations. With such proficient methods, you will definitely become a tactical master in the future. After hearing that compliment, Fangzhu scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. Why do I feel like you're not actually praising me? At that moment, Instructor Lu stepped forward and asked, Fanggu, that shield spell you released just now? Is it a new skill you comprehended yourself? Smiling proudly, Fanggu nodded. Yes, Teacher Lu. While practicing Summon Skeleton, I gained some insights and comprehended 2 new skills. I named them Bone Javelin and Bone Shield. The moment they heard that, both Professor Chun and Instructor Lu froze in complete shock. Instructor Lu immediately patted Fang Zhu on the shoulder and laughed. Good boy, you really know how to surprise us. Feeling another heavy pat on his shoulder, Fanggu smiled helplessly. Teacher, please be gentle. Still looking excited, Instructor Lu turned toward Professor Chun and said, Brother King, you happen to have professional equipment here. Why don't we test Fang Zhu's new skills? Professor Chen nodded without hesitation. No problem. I'll go arrange it. However, Fanggu quickly stopped them and said, Teacher, my spirit power has already bottomed out. I'm afraid I can't test these 2 new skills right now. Instructor Lu simply smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't need to worry about such a small matter at all. The moment he finished speaking, someone immediately brought over a spirit power recovery potion. Looking at the bottle, Fanggu couldn't help but joke. Wait, are you pouring draft beer here? Instructor Lu immediately laughed and replied, Just chug it straight from the bottle. Hearing that, Fang Zhu didn't hesitate any longer. He grabbed the potion and drank it in one go, thinking to himself that this was the first time he had ever seen someone treat recovery potions like ordinary drinking water. It actually felt surprisingly refreshing. While he was finishing the potion, Professor Chun returned with a testing machine. Seeing everything was ready, Instructor Lu looked toward Fang Zhu and said, Get ready. We'll begin the test. Our hero nodded confidently. Okay. As soon as he answered, Instructor Lu continued explaining. Just like during combat class, use your skill to attack it. Hearing the instructions, Fanggu entered a fighting stance before activating his bone flying spear skill. Without holding back, he launched a powerful attack directly at the testing machine. The instant the attack landed, Instructor Lu looked at the results and announced, Attack ability 85. Seeing such an astonishing number, the people nearby immediately started discussing it among themselves. What an incredibly high attack ability for a newly awakened student. That's exceptionally outstanding. Listening to everyone's reactions, Professor Chin added with admiration. The key point is that this is a self-created skill. While everyone was still talking, Instructor Lu looked back at Fanggu. Get ready. Next, we'll test your skill's defensive ability. As soon as he finished speaking, the testing machine rapidly charged toward Fangzhu. Without panicking, our hero immediately activated Bone Shield and completely blocked the incoming attack. A moment later, another result appeared. Defense ability 80. Seeing those numbers, Instructor Lu smiled with satisfaction. Your attack is comparable to a Storm Mage, and your defense is comparable to an Earth Knight. After saying that, he walked over and happily patted Fang Zhu's shoulder once again. Fanghu, you were simply born to be a necromancer. Feeling yet another shoulder pat, Fanggu couldn't help but complain with a helpless smile. Teacher, can you please stop patting me? At that moment, Professor Chin adjusted his glasses and said, Student Fang Zhu, the skills you've comprehended are truly outstanding. I suggest you register them in the skill repository. Hearing those words, Fang Zhu was visibly surprised. The skill repository. As he thought about it, he remembered that the so-called skill repository was a massive skill collection center established by the Federation where anyone could exchange contribution points for powerful skills. Seeing Fang Zhu hesitate, Professor Chin smiled and explained, Our research institute has a branch of the Federation skill repository. You can use it anytime. Hearing that, Fang Zhu smiled gratefully. They'll have to trouble you then. The scene shifted once again, and soon our hero arrived at the location Professor Chun had mentioned together with Instructor Lu. Instructor Lu explained, After uploading your skills, you can immediately use the contribution points you receive to exchange for any skills you need. Hearing that, Fang Zhu nodded respectfully. I understand. Thank you, Teacher Lu. After saying that, he pushed open the massive gate and slowly walked inside. Isn't this supposed to be a skill library? Why is it completely dark? As expected of the Federation skill repository, after walking a little farther, Fangzhu finally reached the library itself. Countless books filled enormous bookshelves stretching in every direction. While he was looking around, he suddenly noticed a glowing crystal beside him. The moment he placed his hand on it, notifications immediately began appearing across his screen, one after another. After reading them, Fangzhu smiled excitedly. So, there's continuous profit as well. It wasn't easy getting into the skill repository. I can't just exchange for a few skills and leave. With that thought in mind, he immediately pulled a book off one of the shelves, opened it, and smiled confidently. Perfect. I'll use these skills as the blueprint to complete even more skill deductions.